On the 8th of March 2014, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 people vanished without a trace. No distress call, no emergency signal, no explanation. One moment, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 was flying normally from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The next, it disappeared from radar and entered history as one of the greatest mysteries in aviation. More than a decade later, despite one of the largest search operations ever conducted, the aircraft has never been fully recovered, and the mystery remains unsolved. What happened to MH370? Flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:41 a.m. local time. The aircraft was a Boeing 777-200ER, widely regarded as one of the safest long-range passenger aircraft in service. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Commanding the flight was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with more than 18,000 hours of flying experience. Everything appeared routine. The weather was clear. The aircraft showed no known mechanical problems. Nothing suggested that the flight would become one of the most investigated events in modern history. At 1:19 a.m., as the aircraft approached Vietnamese airspace, Malaysian Air Traffic Control instructed the crew to contact controllers in Vietnam. The co-pilot responded with 6 simple words. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those would be the final confirmed words ever heard from the flight. Less than 2 minutes later, the aircraft's transponders stopped transmitting. To civilian air traffic controllers, MH370 had suddenly vanished. Initially, authorities suspected a technical failure, but military radar data soon revealed a far more troubling reality. The aircraft had not disappeared from the sky. Instead, it had turned sharply westward, crossed back over the Malaysian peninsula, and continued flying away from its planned route. The maneuver appeared deliberate. Whoever was controlling the aircraft seemed to be avoiding normal civilian radar coverage. Rather than continuing toward Beijing, MH370 was now heading into the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean. As news of the disappearance spread, families desperately waited for answers while governments launched a massive international search effort. Search teams initially focused on the South China Sea, where investigators believed the aircraft had been lost. But after radar analysis revealed the unexpected turn, the search area shifted thousands of kilometers. Then came another critical discovery. Although the aircraft had disappeared from radar, it continued communicating indirectly with satellites through automated electronic handshakes. Analysis of these satellite signals suggested that MH370 had remained airborne for several more hours after its disappearance. This changed the entire investigation. The aircraft had not crashed immediately. It had continued flying deep into one of the most remote regions on Earth. Using complex mathematical modeling and satellite data, investigators identified a possible flight path stretching far into the southern Indian Ocean. The search that followed was unprecedented. Ships, aircraft, underwater vehicles, and experts from multiple nations spent years examining vast sections of ocean floor. The operation covered an area larger than many countries and cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet despite these efforts, the main wreckage remained missing. For more than a year, investigators had almost no physical evidence. Then, in July 2015, a major breakthrough occurred. A wing component known as a flaperon washed ashore on Reunion Island in the western Indian Ocean. Experts confirmed that it belonged to MH370. Over the following years, additional debris fragments were discovered on coastlines in Africa and on islands throughout the Indian Ocean. These discoveries confirmed one crucial fact. MH370 had crashed into the ocean. But they did not explain why. The most important pieces of evidence were still missing. Investigators never recovered the cockpit voice recorder. They never recovered the flight data recorder. They never recovered the main fuselage. Without those critical components, Determining exactly what happened became extremely difficult. As the years passed, several theories emerged. One possibility was a catastrophic mechanical failure. Some experts suggested that a fire, loss of cabin pressure, or another emergency may have incapacitated everyone on board. In this scenario, the aircraft could have continued flying on autopilot until it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. Another theory focused on hijacking. Could someone have taken control of the aircraft and intentionally redirected it? Investigators thoroughly examined the backgrounds of passengers and crew members. However, no evidence supporting a traditional hijacking was ever discovered. The most controversial theory involved the captain himself. Some investigators believe Captain Zahari deliberately diverted the aircraft. Supporters of this theory point to the unusual flight path, the apparent disabling of communication systems, and flight simulator data later recovered from his home computer. According to this theory, the aircraft may have been intentionally flown into a remote region of the Indian Ocean. However, no definitive evidence has ever proven that the captain deliberately caused the disappearance. Many aviation experts remain divided on the issue. Other theories have included cyber attacks, military involvement, accidental depressurization, or unknown technical failures. Yet each explanation leaves important questions unanswered. That is what makes MH370 so unique. Most aviation accidents are eventually explained through evidence recovered from the wreckage. In this case, investigators have only fragments. The complete story remains hidden somewhere beneath the ocean. For the families of the 239 people on board, the disappearance is far more than a mystery. It is a tragedy without closure. Many relatives continue to seek answers and support renewed search efforts. For them, the investigation is not about solving a puzzle. It is about finally understanding what happened to their loved ones. The disappearance also changed aviation forever. International aviation organizations introduced new aircraft tracking requirements and improved procedures designed to prevent another commercial airliner from vanishing so completely. Even so, MH370 remains one of the most extraordinary unsolved cases in modern history. A sophisticated passenger jet carrying 239 people disappeared in an age of satellites, radar systems, and global communications. Despite years of searching, investigators still do not know exactly why it happened or precisely where the aircraft came to rest. Somewhere beneath the vast waters of the Indian Ocean, the answers may still be waiting. Until the wreckage is found and the flight recorders are recovered, the mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 continues. More than a decade later, the world is still asking the same question. What really happened to MH370? Was it an accident, a deliberate act, or something investigators still haven't considered? Let me know your theory in the comments. And if you enjoy documentaries about unsolved mysteries, consider subscribing for more stories that continue to puzzle the world.